What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all doing well. Thanks so much for clicking here on another video. And in today's video, we're talking about the latest film from Ryan Coogler, and that film is called Sinners. Written and directed by Ryan Coogler, this film stars people like Michael B. Jordan, Miles Caton, Hailee Steinfeld, Jack O'Connell, and many more. And before we get too far into this video, if you guys like early reviews like this, retrospective reviews, live streams, vlogs, all that kind of fun stuff, consider subscribing to the channel. But if you're a returning viewer, well, thanks so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to come back once again. And for those of you who do not already know, I'm in a new location, new apartment. Bear with me as I figure out what the best location in this apartment is to film. The rig that you can't see below this camera as to how I got the mic here and all this kind of stuff is a little bit ghetto. Not my favorite setup, so I'm not really sure where I'm going to be filming in this apartment, but bear with me over the course of the coming weeks as I figure out where's the best place to film in this apartment. With all that said, we're going to be talking about the latest film coming from writer-director Ryan Coogler, which immediately excited me, but then he's collaborating in this film once again with Michael B. Jordan as the lead star in the film, and then he got Ludwig Göransson, who's doing the musical score for him once again. So you put all those pieces together and you have a film I was absolutely excited to check out. Add on top of that it's a horror film that's blending genres and is a vampire flick, and you absolutely have all the ingredients for a film that's right up my alley. So without further ado, let's get into what this film is all about. But one thing I want to make abundantly clear is that in my personal opinion, the trailers for this movie show way too much. So I'm just going to give you the base premise of this film for those of you who are watching this review and don't want to hear too much about it. But if you've seen the trailer, if you're like me, you've seen the trailer many times, I'll do a section at the end that touches on the things you see in the trailer. It's not going to be a spoiler talk per se, but I do think there's some big spoilers in the trailer that I do think detracts from the overall experience. So without further ado, let's get into what this film is all about, and then we'll get into my thoughts. This film takes us back to Mississippi in the early 1930s as we focus on two twins played by Michael B. Jordan, known as Smoke and Stack. Two brothers that are in the world of crime. They've created a name for themselves for being tough guys who have gone around and traveled and are coming back to their hometown to open up what they call a juke joint, which is essentially a nightclub for black folk to come listen to music, play blues music, drink, be jolly, all that kind of stuff. That's the base gist, and they want to make a little bit of money on the side while they do this. So they come back home, they get all the pieces, they buy the land, they get all the different individuals they need to come and open this juke joint so that they can have this big fun partying location where they can make some money, only for the night to go absolutely awry when some vampires show up, and as you can imagine, some gnarly stuff starts to ensue. That is the general gist of the film here without getting too deep into spoilers. Of course, I already mentioned you have Michael B. Jordan as the lead star here, who's not only playing one role, but playing two roles. And this is actually like the second or third film I've seen this year that has a big actor in the lead role playing multiple roles. It seems like something that we're seeing a lot of this year. And yeah, I'll just start this off by saying that Michael B. Jordan is incredible in this movie. I don't think that surprises anybody to say he is such a consistent actor. He's somebody who brings something that is just so unique and cool to all the roles he plays. And in a film that takes place in the Jim Crow era, 1930s, Mississippi, you have all these actors bringing very authentic performances and accents to their roles here, and Michael B. Jordan is no different, and he just really has such a swagger about him in the outfits that he's got here in the film and the way he plays these two characters that in a lot of ways, you know, have that brotherly similarity but are also incredibly different. You have one that's a lot more cocky, the one that's a little bit more of a loose cannon, and then you have the one that's a little bit more grounded, with both of them having their own love interest and both of them kind of having their own background that's created who they are. And I think that Michael B. Jordan does a great job, not only because of the aesthetic and the way that you're able to kind of differentiate the two characters based on little things that they wear or the way that they act, but just overall in general, he created two different characters here that you're able to connect to quite a bit. And I think it's easily part of what makes this film so unique outside of all the other things we're going to talk about here. Outside of him, you also have some fantastic actors in here like Delroy Lindo, who plays the character of Slim, who is easily the funniest part of the film. Miles Caton, who plays the character of Sammy, and based on what I was looking at on IMDb, this is his first scripted role in a movie ever. He's a huge part of this film. And I thought he was absolutely fantastic. Loved his performance. He brings a lot of soul to his performance. He's in a lot of ways the heart of the film, even though Michael B. Jordan's characters are the center of the film. In a lot of ways, the character of Sammy is arguably maybe the true center, the true heart to the film. And I think Miles Caton, or Caton, I'm not really sure how to pronounce his name. I think he brings a lot to the role. He brings a lot of nuance, and he plays this preacher's son who, you know, wants to live his own life. He wants to go out there and play music. He wants to be a part of this scene and be able to celebrate life in a different way than the way he was raised to, which, as somebody who was raised in the church, I can only understand, even though this is a completely different circumstance. And so I thought he brought a lot of soul to the movie. A lot of the blues music comes from him as well. And that's something I enjoyed about the film as well, is that there's a lot of blues music in here. Ludwig Göransson, who does the music for this film alongside other stuff that he's done for Ryan Coogler in the past and popular franchises like Black Panther, or even in Star Wars doing The Mandalorian, he brings his style here. That guy is just so talented. He has so many different layers to the kind of music that he can make, and he's able to kind of dive into these different genres of music, adding so much feel and so much emotion to these moments that really elevate the experience and ultimately really capture the tone of the film. And this film is no different, with him really jumping into that bluegrass, you know, early, you know, kind of jazzy kind of feel, and I think that he brought so much to this movie just audibly when you're listening to these transitions from one scene to the next. And going back to the character of Sammy, Miles Caton is really able to really lean into a lot of these moments so well with the blues. And I think that the way that they were able to kind of take the score of the film, as well as kind of how they choose to write the music for the character of Sammy, they work together to really, again, give this film such a really fun, unique blues sound that ultimately made this film have its own identity and really separated it from a lot of other vampire films. Some other big names in the mix, of course, Hailee Steinfeld is a big one that people can see in a lot of the marketing. She's one of the characters I think a lot of the marketing really kind of betrayed by showing way too much, but I thought she was an interesting character. She has a relationship in the past with one of the Michael B. Jordan twins in the film, and I thought that her inclusion and kind of how she was like one of the only white characters that's kind of integrated into this group, I thought was interesting. And they do enough through backstory and through dialogue between these characters for you to really buy into her relationship with all of these characters, and without it ever feeling like forced or kind of random. They do enough to make it feel like it makes sense. And I thought that she was easily one of the coolest parts of the film, just aesthetically as well. There's a lot of scenes in this film with her that are just really cool looking. I don't want to give away too much, but I really enjoyed Hailee Steinfeld in this film. She fit the look, she fit the style, and she did a great job with the accent as well. She's one of those actresses that when I saw her and stuff when she was really young, I thought, well, she's good, but I wasn't like blown away. But ever since I saw her in Bumblebee, every time I see her in something, she just really impresses me, and she gives very different kinds of performances in everything that she's in. And this film is no different, with this just feeling like a huge departure from the things we've seen from her before, especially when it comes down to the accent and a lot of the things that are asked of her in this film. She definitely hams it up in moments in just the right way, and I thought she was fantastic in this film. You also have Wunmi Masaku, who I know specifically from Loki and was, I believe, in Deadpool and Wolverine as well. I thought she was a great addition here. She plays the character of Annie. I thought she was an interesting character as well. I wish they would have given her a little bit more to do at certain points in the film, but she's definitely a really central piece of the film that brings a lot of knowledge around the vampire mythology. And that's something I also enjoyed about this film, is leaning into the vampire mythology. The film has fun with it. It doesn't overly explain it to audience members who maybe aren't familiar, but if you've seen a lot of vampire things like myself, you can watch a movie like this and see them, you know, making references and nods and really kind of leaning into that vampire lore in a way that feels authentic to previous vampire stories. And then speaking on the vampire, the main vampire villain in this film is the character of Remick, played by Jack O'Connell, and I think he brings a lot to the film. He brings this different kind of Irish twist to some of the music we hear in the film as well. And overall, I thought he was a really just kind of creepy villain. The look that he had, especially when he's all bloodied up and he's got his teeth out and he's got got claws and all this different stuff. I thought that he was really, really solid, and I like the way that the vampires look in this film as well, in terms of not only their fangs and just like the teeth and all that kind of stuff, but also like their eyes. There's something about them that's so menacing. And it's interesting because I actually saw Ryan Coogler recently in an interview with Straw Hat Goofy on his social media and his podcast, where he pretty much said that an inspiration that he had for the vampire in this film was the character of Death from Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which I thought was really cool because you could definitely see it. I heard that interview before I saw the movie, so that was something I kind of was like looking at the movie at like through that lens. But you could definitely see that inspiration for sure. I thought that the villain here was definitely creepy and eerie, and in the world of a lot of vampire movies we've gotten in the last few years, Jack O'Connell definitely stands out as a pretty cool vampire in terms of just look and creep factor. I thought he was also given some really good dialogue to just make him feel like a pretty, you know, endearing but also very just eerie, creepy villain in the film. And I think that this film also has a lot of, you know, really interesting subtext around the notion of this white vampire who is kind of promising a certain lifestyle, a certain outlook on life, a certain approach, this painless life to all these black folk who are becoming vampires over the course of the film. I thought there was definitely some interesting subtext there about, you know, some things we can see in real life. And I thought that, you know, Ryan Coogler, who has made a lot of, you know, statements with his films before narratively, definitely leaned into that here in a way where it never felt like it was detracting from the fact that this is just a vampire horror film, but it also had some layers to it. There's things that you can dissect beyond it just being a vampire horror film. But beyond all that, beyond the actors and the characters and the subtext and different things like that, this is just an incredibly well-made film. The cinematography is phenomenal here. The set design, the locations used, the costume design, the blood squibs, the practical effects in general. This is a film that definitely heavily relies on practical blood effects, which definitely added to a lot of these moments. A lot of the film is practical. A lot of it is filmed in camera, which just made a lot of these action sequences and a lot of these creepy moments really work. Of course, there is CGI, like a lot of movies of this time, but I think for the most part is only ever used to really heighten moments. And there are some big CGI digital effects near the end of the film, but for the most part, a lot of it is practical throughout the course of the film. The film also really plays with a lot of fun aspect ratios, where we see that aspect ratio will change in the middle of a sequence, and a lot of times really expands the scope of these moments. You know, you'll see it kind of shrink down in these more intimate moments, only for it to kind of expand up in some of these bigger action moments that really, again, gave this film its own feel, its own look, its own vibe. And overall, I think that this film in general, with the different genres it plays with the, you know, just time that it's set in, with the characters that it's set in, the way that they approach the vampires in this film. This is a film that's very unique in the vampire genre. This is a film that's very unique in the horror genre. This is a film that has drama. It's a film that has great characters, and it's just visually stunning. Now, with all that said, I mentioned earlier that I think the trailer showed way too much, and I will say the biggest gripe with this film for me was knowing all of the big stuff that happens in this film. There's a lot of stuff you see in the trailers that doesn't happen until more than halfway into the film or near the end. Big moments showcasing which characters become vampires in this film that were not vampires earlier. And so unfortunately, this was a situation where there wasn't a lot of surprise for me. This was a situation where I was watching the film and at a certain point had to kind of change my outlook on the film to, okay, I'm not watching this looking for surprise and twists and turns, because the film didn't really have many for me because it's all in the trailers. Unfortunately, there were some nice surprising moments here and there, but it was very few and far between. And it was far more about me kind of just watching it and taking it in terms of its execution. How well was it executed? And on that level, I think it was really well executed. I think that this film is well made from beginning to end, despite the fact that I think the marketing kind of betrays the experience of the viewer and going in and being able to be surprised by some of these big moments. I was really shocked by that. And with that said, let's move into this quick little moment near here at the end that might be considered spoilers for some. I'm not going to spoil anything that happens in the film that's not in the trailer itself, but if you have not seen the trailer, I don't want you to be spoiled if you want to go in blind. So that is your warning. But if you've seen the trailer, you'll see that Hailee Steinfeld is in that trailer as a vampire, and you'll see that Michael B. Jordan, that one of the brothers becomes a vampire. That is clearly seen in the trailer. And there's some other things that you see as well, but those are the two big things. And those things don't happen until well into the movie, like so far into the movie that I was so surprised that they showed it, because you spend time with these characters for quite some time, long before they end up becoming vampires. And there was just this part of me watching the movie that was thinking, why would they show this? Why would they show this in the trailer? It really took away from the experience for me. I was sitting here with these characters just waiting for it to happen. And because of that, there wasn't the surprise of like, oh no, this character I've spent 40, 50, 60 minutes with that I really like has now become a vampire, and now I kind of have to see what happens and how it plays out. Instead, I was just waiting for them to become a vampire and then just waiting to see how it played out. But ultimately, I never found myself really surprised or really shocked by anything that happened in the film, simply because I saw the trailer. And I wasn't like I saw the trailer in a million times. I just saw the trailer here and there. You know, social media algorithms would pop up a quick trailer, an image for it here and there with Hailee Steinfeld with blood running down her mouth. And it left me wondering, why would they choose to do this? So this is a very long review. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up now. But overall, I think that this film is awesome. I think this is a really great, just badass vampire flick that is unique and different within the genre it's in. But I just think the trailer kind of took away from some of that experience. But I was still really impressed by the film, despite the fact that I just didn't ever have any surprise to it because of what the trailers did. So that's gonna be my thoughts on Sinners. I look forward to hearing what you guys have to say. Did you like the movie? Did you not like the movie? Whatever the case may be, leave any and all comments down below, and I'll see you beautiful people in the next one. Bye-bye.